Wow, that was good.
All right.
Right.
Stop chewing, sis. What are you chewing on? You're freaking us out. Lady, you're scaring us. Now that it's just us three in a room, I'm going to get goofy as fuck.
Oh, God. Here we go.
All right, y'all. It is the three of us. Just the three of us. We can make it if we try. Just the three of us. You, me, and I. Anyway.
Just the three of us.
All right.
No, that was good. Ooh.
Matt is here.
Hey.
Julie's here. And it's me as well.
Hello. It's me.
What's up, you guys? How you doing?
I'm good. How
Julie's
are you?
married. We just went to that
Married.
wedding a few weekends ago. It was really fun.
Yep.
She just got back from her honeymoon.
I did. I'm back.
How do you feel?
No different.
No different.
Nope.
Matt, how do you feel?
About the same as always.
Me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been in the best mood recently, though.
That's great.
Just fucking great.
We love to hear
Great
that.
mood, but also, yeah, that's it.
We don't text separately that much, but when we do,
It pops
I'm
off.
like you have no idea how I'm just like smiling the entire time.
We've really fallen in
Like,
love
we
the past few weeks.
We try really hard. Like, I feel bad. You were trying to like have a serious conversation with me about something, and I just kept saying stupid shit, and then being like,
please don't ever stop.
and then I was like, no, wait, I'm sorry. Like, let's go back to this, and then I'd be like, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, we were talking about something serious, and then you were cracking jokes, but I don't really care. And then I stopped answering, but I didn't mean to.
I hate that.
I always do it.
Oh,
I'm like,
the
God.
queen of just,
I just don't-
cutting off a conversation
It's like when I'm at work, I read something and then I put it down. And when I'm at home and doing something, I just like throw my phone across the room. Like, I can't deal with it. The phone.
I think that's good though. Like, not being on your phone all the time.
Yeah.
Actually.
No, it's definitely a good thing. It's just for, I know for myself at least, as like someone who is like overly anxious that they've said the wrong thing and made somebody upset.
You
I'm
didn't.
Like,
There's no
I'm
way
like
you
constantly in this state of mind where it's like, did I piss Kathleen off?
Oh God, I hate that.
I'm like that
I
with
wish you'd,
everybody. I'm like that
wish
with
you've
everyone.
seen me. If you pulled our text conversations from the last 5 years, I would say 80% of the texts are me.
not in the last.
I mean,
year.
recent, sure.
Sure.
But
That's because pre-podcast, our relationship was fully just texting random memories to each other. We weren't texting each other new. Like, I didn't know anything that was happening with your life, and now we know everything. Now I'm like, you're the only person I told about this.
I know. Oh my God, when you said that, I like fell to the ground. I was like, yeah.
I don't know. My brain was just like, I have to tell Julie about this.
I love it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Matt's
here.
Yeah, we let Matt pick an episode this week. He wanted us to watch Mamma Mia or Hairspray, but we couldn't find the time, so we were like, Matt, how about you pick an episode?
Yeah, I mean, we want to be able to like give the musicals
The time
our
they deserve.
They need, yeah, exactly.
I need to be wine drunk.
And you know what? We're due for a Matt pick, so it worked out perfectly. Matt picked That 70s Show, and if my notes would open up, I would tell you.
Season 3, episode 25, The Promise Ring.
Yes.
And that boy Matt has some emotions tied to this episode, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's funny, as I was sitting here preparing, I realized that whenever I pick an episode, I would consider myself, for the most part, like kind of a goofy, jolly person. And I tend to pick like 30-minute sitcoms. But the first time I picked something, it was an episode of Scrubs in which every patient in the hospital died.
Yep.
And then for Daria, I did the graduation episode. And for this one, I'm picking an episode about heartache.
Yeah.
And it's kind of telling in a lot of ways, I guess. The things that I connect to are those moments where like it hits that core emotion for me. And it's like when I watch that episode of Scrubs, I feel a connection to saying goodbye to my grandfather. And when I watch that Daria episode, I think of walking away from high school and, you know, even 15 plus years later, having these regrets about, oh, I could have done high school differently. I should have done something differently in high school. And that 70s show, I feel like this pick was almost exclusively because of the last 5 minutes of the episode. I think that the last 5 minutes is the most natural and realistic breakup I've ever seen on a sitcom, because 99% of the sitcom that you watch, when characters break up, it's because someone cheated on somebody, or, you know, there was a misunderstanding, or this, that, or the other thing. And this is purely two people on very different tracks of where they want to see their lives go, and that you can have this complete and total love for each other. Like, there's no doubt that Eric and Donna are in love with each other, but the timing isn't right for the two of them to be in love with each other. And it's almost more heartbreaking that way than if Donna had cheated on Eric or Eric had cheated on Donna.
Yeah. So I feel like when I'm in a relationship, and I've always been this way, like, I always think about, for some reason, like, am I going to marry this person? And I remember even thinking that when I was like 16, dating people, like, just being like, I wonder if I'm going to end up marrying this person. So, like, for me, and I think that's because maybe I'm just someone that just, like, loves fully, and I just, like,
Me too.
I'm like, Donna is a bitch. Like, in my head, like, and
so
she's
and I
not.
disagree. I mean, I feel like I am Eric, but I'm like, no, I get it. Because I think the problem is that I'm an Eric, but I'm always falling in love with Donna's.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always falling in love with the strong, independent woman that, like, wants to have her own career and doesn't want to be tied down in a relationship. And, like, that's what I love about them. But it also makes the attempt at being in a relationship all that more difficult, because I'm also like, yeah, but I want to be with you. Like, it's like that weird, like, push and pull.
Well, so what I was saying, though, is, like, for me, it's like, no matter what you want to do, like, the way that my mind works is like, I could make you still be a part of my life, even if I wanted to be an independent person and build my own career. Like, I've in my head, like, I'm like, no matter what I do, I would at least take you for the ride and see where we go.
Yeah.
I think the issue here, and I don't watch 70 Show at all, and I've seen like bits and pieces, but they're so young is the point. But I am totally, Julie, on your side, where in recently going through a breakup, the hard pill to swallow is kind of like, if they wanted to be with you, they would have made it work. It's like, you should be with someone where there's no other option. It's like, you're gonna figure it out. But I mean, I think the opposite, or not the opposite, the differing thing is that they're so fucking young. How old are they in this?
This
17,
is, they're
right?
16 or 17. Yeah.
They're babies.
So-
I mean, yeah, he's being kind of overdramatic.
Yeah.
So there's an extra lower layer to this, because I watched that 70s show when it aired, and it was like, it was just a show that was on. You know what I mean? Like, I remember select episodes, but it was never that important. But what happened with me with that 70s show that kind of made it this upper tier show to me, where it's like, you know, we talk about like Gilmore Girls being this warm blanket show. That 70s show is a very, very much a warm blanket show for me, because the last year of college for me, I got dumped by the last girlfriend that I had via text message on my birthday, and then had to finish the last 2 months of college and then start, you know, a life in the real world. And the week after I graduated college, I got laid off from my job. So I was literally at the lowest point I'd ever felt, when I should have felt my happiest. You know, like, I worked hard, I finished college, and I was like dealing with a bad breakup and feeling like I just spent all this money on this degree, and now I don't even have a job to like show anything for it. And I sunk into this depression and was just laying on the couch in my apartment that I could barely pay for because I didn't have a job at this point. And I watched a rerun of that 70s show. And it was like it was back when like they would do like 4 episodes in a row on like ABC Family or whatever. So I watched these 4 episodes, and I was going to originally pick the first episode that I watched during that run, which is a season 6 episode called Sparks. But I watched it, and it like made me feel happy. And where I lived was directly behind a Circuit City, and Circuit City was closing at that time, and their DVD section was 90% off. Yeah. So I walked in there and bought the entire series of that 70s show for $13, and just like spent a whole week just watching the show from start to finish. And it was kind of like, when I got to the end of that, I was like, okay, you've done your sulking. It's time to go get a job now. Like, it was like, that was like the pill that I needed to like distract me from all the negative emotions and move on. But this episode specifically, I always stuck out of me, because obviously I was going through a breakup. So watching a breakup episode kind of felt appropriate. But it also just, there's this moment at the end of the episode, and we'll get to it, but it hits in such a special way. And it's such a bummer that they changed the song. On pretty much all the streaming services, it's just like a random instrumental song. But the theme song, the iconic theme song for that 70s show that I feel like even if you've never watched the show, you know, the like hanging out, is a cover of a song by a band called Big Star. And Big Star is credited as like the band that started modern pop music without ever becoming famous. Like they put out 3 albums, no one listened to them, they broke up, and then like in the 90s, like Nirvana, REM, like all these huge bands were like, oh yeah, Big Star is like what made me pick up a guitar and want to play music. So they were like this iconic band after the fact. And the 2 biggest songs that they ever had was a song called In the Streets, which has that hanging out down the street lyric. But the other song that they had is this song called 13 that's been covered a ton of times. Garbage has covered it. Wilco's covered it. And it's this beautiful love song. And it's called 13 because it's written from the perspective of a 13-year-old asking a girl to the dance. And the first verse is what I always connected with, which was, won't you let me walk you home from school? And it's just this really pretty verse. But at the very end of this episode, Eric's lying on the car after just self-destructing his relationship. All of a sudden you hear this because it's just an acoustic song, you just hear this pretty acoustic guitar piece playing in the background, and then the lyrics come in for the last verse.
Won't you tell me what you're thinking of? Would you be an outlaw for my love? If it's so, well, let me know. If it's no, well, I can go. I won't make you. Ooh.
And then it just ends and fades out there. And it's like, people who are like hardcore fans of that 70s show, that song shows up so much during Eric and Donna scenes that the theory is if they got married after the show ended, that's the song that they slow dance to. Like that's like that beautiful, perfect song. So I listened to the commentary track, and the director is very, very insightful throughout it. And he says that from the start of the show, they said, however long the show runs, they want to tell a romance story in the 3 phases that they feel like things go through. And the first is the courtship. So it starts off with Eric and Donna. They've been neighbors for life. They clearly like each other, but there's this awkwardness, and they finally start dating. But then you have to hit that point where you are not mature enough for the relationship that you've signed up for. And that's what this episode is. And then the rest of the show is winning that person back to prove that you've grown up and you understand who they are as a person and you can work together. And I think that's why they use that song 13, because it does, each verse kind of covers these different moments in a relationship. So I just find this whole episode, and we'll get into the funny stuff because it's a really funny episode too, but I think if not for that ending, and I love the choice to not film it in front of an audience. I love that it's just complete awkward silence as you watch this argument. There's no people gasping. There's nothing. It's just the silence of Eric. And when he like bangs his fist against the car, I feel it. Yeah. I watched this episode 4 times. And I felt it every single time. Like that moment where you're just so angry, and you have to wonder if he's angry at himself or the situation or both. And the director said one other thing, and then we can jump into all the funny stuff. But he said, Eric does the one thing that ruins everything. He ignores the advice that people give him and then gets angry when the reality of the situation is revealed.
Wow, that's deep. that hurts.
Yeah. And before the breakup, Hyde says maybe you want 2 different things.
Yeah, he says like maybe Donna's not that kind of girl.
Yeah.
And I think being someone who identifies a lot with Eric and being someone who's had a lot of friends like Hyde, I think Eric takes that comment to be, Donna's not the girl for you.
Yeah.
And that's not what he's saying.
Yeah.
But he's saying you have to adjust what your expectations are if you want to keep her.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be able to mold her into the person you want her to be.
Yep. It's so true too. Like when you go to your friends for advice and they tell you what you don't want to hear, and like you have to like accept that they're giving you the reality and they're trying to be like a good friend to you, but like in your head you're like fuck off.
Yeah.
Like you're like mad at them for telling the truth, but
Yeah.
like it's like you're just mad at the reality of the situation and they're just being like real with you and like telling you how it is. Like there's honestly nothing worse than that, of like your friends giving you like
Yep.
advice because they love you so much and they want you to be like okay, and you just like hate hearing what they said.
Oh, 100%. Now, I feel like we can bounce back to this later because I still have so many notes about it, but I want to like lighten up the mood a little bit. So can we talk about how Kitty Foreman is like the ultimate television mother? Like,
I love these parents. They're fucking incredible. And they're my favorite characters in the show. I mean, this was the first full episode I've ever watched of That 70 Shows, and I have big, bolded letters. I hate Topher Grace. I fucking hate that guy. Everything he's in, I'm like, this guy's such a dweeb, dude. I'm like, he sucks. Valentine's Day, every movie I've ever seen him in, I'm like, what's that? Take Me Home Tonight?
oh, I
I'm
love
like, he's
Take Me
such
Home Tonight.
I feel like I remember texting you during quarantine being like, I just don't like this guy. Like, I don't like. So that sucks that he's the main character. I just, I'm totally biased against this show because of that. But I weirdly have like, besides Hyde, I have an opinion on all the main characters separate from this show. Interestingly enough, so like Topher's the only negative one. I love Ashton and Mila, of course. They're the fucking best. Donna is Laura, who is from Orange is the New Black, and she's incredible in that. It's weird to see her be this kind of like sweet teenager when she's like so hard and
badass
in
Alex.
Orange is the New Black. And then Wilmer, of course, from Demi Lovato. I've got many thoughts on that, but we don't need to dive into that. His accent is insane.
Oh my god.
Fez in rewatches, I think, is my favorite character just because they give him such insane lines.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not even like the lines are funny, but him with the accent saying the lines makes it so funny. Like when he says talk about the tip of the iceberg, it's like not that funny of a line, but the way he says it, it becomes like a hilarious line.
How did this crew come together? So you said Donna and Eric are neighbors.
Yeah, so Donna and Eric are neighbors.
Hyde seems like a 40-year-old man.
Hyde,
Literally.
Yeah.
so Hyde and Kelso and Eric have always been friends. Fez isn't his actual name. It's the abbreviation for like foreign exchange student.
Oh my
Oh,
god!
wow.
Really?
Yeah. So they just call him Fez, but it's for foreign exchange student. Hyde, the concept is basically that like you have these three friends who, all things considered, they probably are only friends because of proximity. You know what I mean? Like your earliest friends are just you live near each other.
Yep.
And then you have them go in all these different directions where like Eric is this like Star Wars obsessed dork. And the only other episode I considered was picking the episode where Eric watches Star Wars for the first time, because the first like 5 minutes of that episode I relate to so hard, but then I feel like the episode kind of trails off from there. So that's why I didn't pick it. And then you've got Kelso, who's like the big dumb jockey idiot. And then Hyde is like that dude who got really into drugs and really into conspiracy theories. They just all happen to live together or live around each other. Hyde lives with the Foremans. As the series goes on, Hyde's parents just run out on him and they find him living alone in this house, and the Foremans take him in because they're like, we can't allow that to stand. And that's why I do love the Foremans so much, is like, there's a lot of episodes where Eric feels like his parents love Hyde more than they love him. And the reality of that situation, I think they addressed it in the show, but I know even without it being addressed, the vibe that you get is that Red Foreman is very hard on Eric because he knows that Eric can do better. Whereas with Hyde, it's like he's this baby bird that's been thrown out of a nest and he needs to nurture that bird to be able to fly on its own eventually. Whereas like Eric, he knows that Eric is a good kid that's going to make the right decision. So he just is yelling at him every time that he sees him kind of going off the path of just being the good kid. But Kitty, I've said it before in our family, but Kitty reminds me of our mom.
Yeah.
So much. Just like when she runs out and she's like, oh my God, let me get a picture.
Yeah.
Donna's not nearly as shrill.
All right,
No.
act like he just gave you the ring.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think you rolled your eyes when he gave you
Yeah.
the ring.
She's excellent.
Yeah,
I really
she's
like the mom.
hilarious. The dad's hilarious too, though.
Is the other parents that are in the opening credits, are they Donna's parents?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So they're neighbors and best friends, I assume.
It's like a love-hate,
It's a
isn't
love-hate.
it? Yeah.
Red is annoyed by the dad, and the mom eventually runs out on the family. And that's like one of the things that I do like about that 70s show is that it's a teen sitcom, and it could just take place in the 70s and that just kind of be the backdrop. And it allows for you, even if it's in the 70s, it's still very, like, kids are always going to relate to, like, the angsty shittiness of going through high school.
Yep.
But they use the framework of the 70s to tackle social issues and to tackle, like, Donna is this very forward-thinking early feminist woman of the 70s, and throughout the show she keeps talking to her mom because her mom is so clearly unhappy in the marriage, and she keeps saying, like, you don't have to be like this, and convinces the mom to take feminism classes, which eventually leads to her, like, running out on the family entirely, which, like, goes to the extreme. But it tackles all of those moments. It tackles, like, there's a whole episode dedicated to Roots premiering on television. Like, they try to tie in all this stuff. And then the final episode is New Year's Eve 1979. So it ends like this. That 70s show ends the second that the 70s ended.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
That's brilliant and simple and obvious, but
yeah. And so there's a lot. Like, I wrote down little notes of just, like, as someone who's watched the show 1,000 times, like, little things that I think are really funny. Like, in the beginning, Eric is saying that he's counting his stash to figure out if he can afford the promise ring. And if you look at the table, the game Candyland is on the table. And that's a reference to the first season where his money goes missing. And he's like, but I hid it. And they're like, we all know you hide your money in the Candyland board game. Like, everybody knows that.
I love that. That's the beauty of watching a show. I hate watching a show an episode in the middle of it because I like getting every single solitary joke.
It took me, and granted, like, I've only seen the show when there's marathons on.
Yeah, it's on
ABC
a lot.
Family, but I more so would just, like, leave the TV on when I was younger. And it's so funny, like, we talk about, like, the musical Grease of, like, how many, like, sexual references there is, where it's like, I watched that in, like, first grade. It was my favorite movie and clearly had no fucking idea what, like, was going on and what they were singing about. And it's just, like, so funny to me now watching, like, as an adult, where they go around the circle and they're clearly, like, smoking weed, going around the circle and just, like, saying random shit.
Yeah.
But, like, when I was younger, obviously, I didn't put two and two together.
That was funny.
And they're, like, my favorite. Those
bits
moments
are the
best.
Yeah.
Because they just say the most off the wall shit, and it's so funny.
Well, and that becomes one of the things I like about that is that for the longest time, it's the same four guys every time. It's Eric, Kelso, Hyde, and Fez. But, like, as the show progresses, like, there's an episode where, like, Jackie smokes weed for the first time, and, like, she's part of the circle now, and, like, Mila Kunis just sells, like, she just can't stop eating snacks and is, like, distracted the whole time. So, like, every time the camera pans to her, she just stares at it, eating a snack for a couple seconds, and then just pans to the next person.
My God. She's so cute and young.
Mila Kunis.
I know.
I am a stan. I think I forget until I see her in something, and I'm like, I fucking love her. She's
so fun
cool.
fact
I
about
actually
her.
love the name Mila, and if our kid is named that, just know it's because of Mila Kunis.
Mark it.
Just know it.
So, fun fact with her is she auditioned for this show when she was 15 years old. And when they were interviewing her, the director said, "You're 17, right?" And she said, "I'm going to be 17." And, like, afterwards, she's like, I mean, it was going to take 2 years, but eventually I was going to be 17 and I wanted this job.
Yeah,
Like,
hell yeah.
Yeah, I did see that on an interview that she, like, lied about her age to get onto the show.
on the show.
That love story, I mean, just mean Ashton and Mila in general, because they were, like, not a thing. Like, obviously they're together in the show, but forever they were just buddies, and Ashton always saw her as, like, a buddy, and then all of a sudden it was like, that's hot.
Now that you're mentioning Ashton, when I watch this, there's two people in my life that Kelso reminds me of, and one of them is Julie's husband now.
Oh, God.
Seriously,
and
Kenny?
There's specifically the scene that made me think of him is when Eric finds out that Donna's not wearing the promise ring, and he's like, burn! And he's like, wedding's off! Like,
oh my God, that is kind of...
And he's that loud personality. It's one of those things where I think that the show, as I was watching episodes to try to figure out which one I wanted to pick, I was like, okay, yeah, this is like a very by the numbers sitcom. Like, I could talk for hours about like why Scrubs is like legitimately a revolutionary sitcom. Or I could talk about like having watched like 11 seasons of Cheers, like how it like sets up the template that like shows are still following to this day. That 70s Show is just a by the numbers sitcom that's not a ton of special, but I wanted to talk about it because, like I said, it's one of those shows where sometimes you've said it a million times, sometimes a show just comes into your life at like the exact time that you need that show to come into your life, and because of that you look past all of its faults. And like that is 100% that 70s Show for me. Is like, it was always a show in my life, but it wasn't truly a show in my life until I was at my lowest and rediscovered it.
Yeah, I respect that. I like it more knowing that that's that show for you, because to me, no offense, I don't love this show. I wouldn't watch any more episodes of it, but I liked it. I liked this episode knowing that you obviously picked it for a reason, and you were like, I've got some notes on this and emotional turmoil. I was like, okay, cool. But can we talk about how I would just gag if somebody tried to give me a promise ring? I would gag and die. First of all, I thought a promise ring meant no sex. What was the Nick Jonas thing?
A celibate.
Yeah, the celibacy, but that wasn't what the ring was called. What was the ring? Wasn't it a promise ring?
No, wait. Oh my God, stop. Purity ring.
Purity ring.
Rings.
Okay.
I'm like celibate ring.
Yeah, because Kelso makes a comment, I think. He says something like, I'm going to give her one too. Like, you only do that for more sex or something like that. And I was like, oh, I thought a promise ring meant they were saving themselves.
A promise ring is like... basically, like, I feel like it's an ongoing joke with couples. Like, a promise ring is like kind of like a slap in the face, like, unless you're young, because it's like basically being like, I don't want to marry you yet, but here's this promise ring.
Oh my God,
just promise and spend forever with you.
Yeah,
Cringe, I would die.
I loved Donna. I don't hate the show by any means. It's really Topher Grace just poisoning the well for me. I just can't look at his face.
See, and I like weirdly really like Topher Grace, and I don't know what it is. Like, because for a while I was like, maybe I just like it because like he's Eric Foreman, and like I like Eric Foreman as a character. But then like, I don't know. He's like weirdly obsessed with editing. Like, he's like, do you know about like his weird video editing obsession?
I do not.
He has this weird thing where he wants to like write and direct, and him being a Star Wars nerd in the show is like based on him in real life. And he like got it in his head that like, man, the problem with the Star Wars prequels weren't that they were bad. It was just that you didn't need to tell 3 stories to tell that story. So like, as just one day he got bored and he just cut all 3 Star Wars movies into a 2-hour movie and like just did like a one-time screening in LA, just be like, this is my version of Star Wars.
Wow.
And he did like the same thing with The Hobbit, where he's just like, The Hobbit doesn't need to be told in 3 stories. So like he spent like 2 months just like, let's just get it down to the bare essentials of story. So what he did is called story editing. Essentially, you look at someone's script and you say, well, if we cut all this, we get to the main point of the story. And something I noticed for the first time watching this is that Will Forte is the story editor for this episode of that 70s show.
Wow, interesting. I love him.
Yeah, and I was like, maybe that's just a coincidence. Maybe it's just someone else named Will Forte. But I looked, and he was the story editor for like 2 seasons of that 70s show before like SNL and everything.
Wow, I wish Will Forte was Eric Foreman. I would like this show way more. I don't know, but I like so back to the promise rings. I like when Donna's like, is that what I agreed to? Or was that what I promised? Like, she had no idea. It's like, yeah, Mila's like, you're going to be with him forever. And the look in Donna's eyes was like, me, that is me. I'd be like, no, fucking miscommitment issues over here. I'd be like, fuck that. Get this fucking ring out of my face.
I'd be so pissed if I got one.
I mean, if Donna wearing it around her neck, it's like, oh my God, the idea of me being in high school and someone giving me a ring and me deciding to wear it around my neck, and he's like, why isn't it on your hand? I'd be like, I don't want to ever see your face again. I'm moving out of this house. I'm not your neighbor anymore. Beat it.
Also, at the same time, if you're in high school and you're taking a promise ring that seriously...
You mean Eric is like taking it that seriously?
And like Jackie like being that young, being like, that's what it means.
Well,
like,
okay, so these are the 2 different kind of relationships. Like, it seems like Mila and Ashton's are just like it does seem like they're just like, she's young, he's in it for the sex, but they like each other, and it's just like a whirlwind. But these two seem like they're like, in the very beginning, Eric's like, we've been fighting a little bit, and they seem like they've been in it for a while. They're like kind of maybe bored. I don't know.
I was gonna say, this is about 2 seasons of them dating.
Right. So it feels very worn in, where I'm like, oh God, this is like a last ditch effort to save the relationship. Yeah. Whereas Mila and Ashton's was just like funny and goofy and stupid. And when she's eating the ice cream, I was dying.
Oh my God.
Like,
so
what a queen.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because the director, I had one other quote that I wrote down from the director that jumped out at me, is he said, when we were doing this episode, the mindset that I had when I was writing and directing it was that if Eric just let well enough be, that everything would be okay. Mm-hmm. But his insistence that they had to nail down exactly what they were is what led to the breakup. And he also says that if you watch that scene with Mila, that like you can actually see her start to turn red because she's trying to not laugh about eating the ice cream so quickly.
That happens a lot early on in relationships too. This one is a later down the road kind of thing, but early on in relationships, I've seen it with friends and other people where it's like one of the two try and say, well, what are we? And it's like, well, if you're asking me right now and I have to decide, we're nothing.
Yeah.
You let it breathe a little bit. It's like that. You can't rush it. It's a sweet spot. And that's kind of why in relationships, people don't bring shit up.
Yeah.
Like I've kind of been there where I'm like, I guess I'm just riding this out because I'm scared that I'm going to get the answer I don't want to hear. Yep. So people pussy out. It's like, it's a very, you got to find a happy medium somehow, because you're either a big old pussy about it, which I kind of tend to be, or on the other hand, where you're like being pushy, which is like intense.
Yeah, I usually don't. I mean, now I'm married, so it doesn't matter. But previously, I'd never ask. Like, I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to see where this
I mean, if it seems good, it seems good, you know?
Yeah, it's like why?
What's I'm hard on my sleeve. I say whatever I'm feeling all the time, but I'm not going to make someone else. I'm not going to force emotions out of somebody else is my thing. Like I blabber everything I've ever felt in my life to anybody who will listen. To anyone with ear holes, I will tell. But it's the opposite, where I'm like, I'm not gonna ask. I don't want to know. You know?
So the one other big thing I want to talk about is that 70s show really made a name for itself in its weird pop culture fantasy sequences, which there's usually at least one every episode. So in this one, it's Donna's dream of her being on the like Make a Deal type show.
I liked that scene. That was a good one.
And that was the thing. It was, as I was watching a bunch of episodes to try to like figure it out, this was the one where I felt like not only did I actually think that the fantasy was funny, like sometimes those are like the parts that just fall flat for me, but it also like pushes the story forward. So like, I like that it reveals like what Donna sees for her own future, where it's like this girl traveling around the world writing and like possibly one day being the first female president. Like she's like aiming for the stars. Mm-hmm. But I also love when door number 3 opens and it's Eric just sitting on a donkey and he just goes, I love you.
I mean, nothing's more cringier. Like nothing. I'm telling you that I was like, oh, when I watched it. I don't know what it is. I would like to. It must be Valentine's Day. I don't remember ever seeing him before that. Is he in a movie with Anne Hathaway, just those two? Or am I thinking of some... Oh, no, that's Jake Gyllenhaal, maybe.
Are you talking about Love and Other Drugs? Because that's Jake Gyllenhaal.
Okay, that is Jake Gyllenhaal. I didn't really
Have you been hating Jake Gyllenhaal this whole time?
No, I love Jake Gyllenhaal. All Too Well, baby. That's what All Too Well...
I would love that to be the big revelation. Oh, I've been thinking of Jake Gyllenhaal
No,
this
I like
whole
Jake
time.
Gyllenhaal. But I also haven't really seen him in much. Like Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah. I remember people saying that like this specific type of male actor for a while, and it was like Jake Gyllenhaal, Topher Grace, and like Tobey Maguire all kind of like fell into this bucket of like, well, you're not like a hunk, but like you're also very average.
Jake is the clear winner in that.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, the other two you can like hop around. I don't really know, but I agree. That is a very accurate. Those three are very similar looking, but no, it's Topher, and I think it's Valentine's Day. If you're saying it's like my favorite, and he's with Anne Hathaway as like a sex phone operator or whatever, and I just think, I mean, she's cringy in that, but I like her part, like the way he reacts to it. I'm like, ugh.
I love Valentine's Day.
It's my favorite. It's like my favorite rom-com of all time. So that is my least favorite. Like if I have to pee during the movie, I won't even pause. I'll just pee during that.
I actually, this is very off topic, but I actually love New Year's Eve too.
I only saw it in theaters and just thought it was good.
Okay,
yeah. And that, but I thought I remember saying Valentine's Day is much better.
Because you never know if the movies are going to hit or not when they have all those famous people in them.
My
like,
God,
you're like,
it's
they're either going to be
Valentine's
so
Day
bad
is-
or it's going to be so good. I think Valentine's Day is better than New Year's Eve, but I still love like the storylines of them both, of like everyone has different shit going on. Like almost like he's just not that into you.
I was about to say that's probably of the ones where it's like mega ensembles. I feel like that's my favorite one.
I love that
but
movie.
I was gonna say I think that one also has a little bit more of like a script to it because it's like an
based off a book.
adaptation. Yeah, like it's like an adaptation of like a pre-written thing.
Yeah.
Versus like Valentine's Day and New Year's both kind of just they're like a series of shorts essentially that kind of connect to each other.
When quarantine hit, Valentine's Day was the first thing I put on. I was like, I need something that's going to mellow me.
Is that on Netflix?
It was on something. I didn't buy
yeah,
it.
it's definitely on.
It could have been on demand. I'm not sure. But I was like in my apartment alone and I said, okay, I need something that is going to make me fucking happy right now. I had like scaries from drinking the night before. It was like bad. The world shut down and I had bad drinking scaries and was like, okay, I need something.
So Valentine's
That's
Day
okay.
to you is like my Can't Hardly Wait. Like Can't Hardly Wait's like my like,
Probably.
ooh, I need to feel good. I'm going to
Yeah.
put this on. I'm going to quote the whole movie the whole time I'm watching it and just feel
Jeez,
like
I don't know
warm
if I have one
fuzzies.
of those.
Yeah.
Garden State was that for me for a while too. I could watch Garden State
I like
every
Easy
day.
A for that.
Ooh, Easy A is a good
Easy A
one.
is an incredible movie too.
The only other big note that I have written down was something that I was thinking about when I was watching it, and then the director and the commentary mentioned it again, and I was like, okay, this is worth bringing up, is that throughout the show, but even in this episode, it happens twice, that major moments in Donna and Eric's relationship take place on the hood of the car. So it's where he gives her the promise ring, and it's also on the hood of the car where they break up. He was saying like there was something about he wanted there to be this visual cue that if you were just flipping through the channels and you saw Eric and Donna on the hood of the car and you were like a fan of the show, you're like, ooh,
Something's happening.
something's about to happen.
Yeah. Did they end up getting married? Because I'm not going to watch it.
So Topher Grace left the show
Okay.
in the 7th season, and then they still produced an 8th season. So what ended up happening, season 6 into season 7, Eric is trying to figure out his life. He learns about these people going to Africa to try to teach these kids about like life in America and teach them reading. So he decides that he wants to go for a year and teach the children of Africa. So that's how they write him off. And then I think Kelso ends up deciding to go along with him. So they lost like their two biggest names
Yeah.
leading into their last season, just in time for the last episode where it's New Year's Eve. And it's actually like we were talking about Schitt's Creek last week, but like the last episode is a very like cry a whole bunch episode, because there's a scene where Eric and Kelso both come home for the holidays. So they're like kind of pairing them up, like, oh, Eric and Donna are going to get back together. Jackie and Kelso might get back together. Like this, everything's coming full circle. And they're standing upstairs, and Kitty Foreman starts walking around and telling them all how much she loves seeing them back in the house and how much she misses seeing them every day. And like the actress is just like crying her eyes out. So it's like definitely one of those moments where you like, you know, we talk about this a lot, but you get that vibe that like obviously filming 8 seasons of a show together, you develop that closeness of seeing each other every day. And you can tell that like she's having a really tough time, like saying goodbye to the actual show
Yeah.
in that moment. So like that part's just heartbreaking. But then, yeah, literally the show ends with Eric and Donna looking at each other while people count down for the ball drop. And then it just cuts to black. And that's the end of the show.
Did you like it?
I liked it. I hated that last season, but I liked that last episode.
Nice.
Yeah.
Last seasons are tough. People are trying to squeeze anything. If you look back, hindsight's 2020. You would have ended things much earlier.
Yeah.
You know, but what are you gonna do? I mean, even for my other podcast, we did the 100, and at the end, there's 7 seasons total. It's kind of wacky by the end of it. The end of season 5 kind of has a ending that they could have ended at. And so the boys kind of said, would you have rather it ended at 5 and or do you like this ending better? And I'm like, I'm never gonna not want to see more of the show I love. You know what I mean? It's like an impossible thing. So would you have rather it ended on 7 and not 8 not have been a thing? Like, that's an impossible question.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if they had just made the season 8 final episode, well, if they made that last episode of season 8 the last episode of season 7, then I'd be like, okay, fine, perfect.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't even, it was a little bit more of a How I Met Your Mother thing and a little less of like a Scrubs thing, where it's like, you didn't add anything to the story during that season. You just kind of were buying time to get to the finale. Mm-hmm. There wasn't like a ton of character development where it's like, oh, but if we didn't have that season, I wouldn't have gotten to see this character development. Like, it was like, no, like all the pieces were already on the board. Yeah. We were just waiting. But that there's a YouTube channel that I love called Wisecrack, where they do these analytical looks at different things. And they did a topic of why do finales ruin shows? And it was like breaking down like how people were upset about the Lost ending and how people were upset about Dexter's ending and this, that, and the other thing. And I forget who it was. I want to say it was either the showrunner of Lost or Michael Schur of like Parks and Rec and The Good Place fame. Oh. But they basically said that the perfect finale of any show ever was Cheers. And they were like, the reason why the Cheers finale is perfect is because it just ends. Like, it's not like this big twist. It's not this big reveal. Like, he's like, you know, when that show fades to black on that final episode, that Ted Danson is going to continue to date more women and he's going to continue to have more adventures, just that you've seen the most exciting adventures and the most interesting girls. Mm-hmm. But he's just going to keep living his life. And
I also think that's genre based. I mean, Cheers is a sitcom. It's like, okay, they're chilling and killing in a bar. It's like Lost is like, well, what's the deal? What are we doing? What are we working towards there? Why are they on this fucking island? So it's definitely genre based.
For sure. Like, everything's up for interpretation. Like, the Mad Men finale is up for interpretation. The Breaking Bad finale is up for interpretation.
It's nice when you get a final season and you know it's your final season and you had the exact amount of seasons you wanted to get to the final. You know, it's like The Magicians ended in 5, and while I thought it was a fucking excellent finale, it's like, okay, I mean, this could have gone on for seasons, and while it's left on a cliffhanger almost, it's still final. You know, it's like, I know I'm not getting any more of this. I feel great after this, but I would watch a million more seasons. But they could have had more. It's some get like, okay, you were canceled after 5, so you got to finish it. What are you gonna do? The
only other two that I remember, one is like an extremely infamous finale that people adore, and one is like the butt of all jokes. Is St. Elsewhere. The finale of St. Elsewhere is the butt of all jokes. It was a hospital drama in the same vein as like a Grey's Anatomy or a
George Clooney.
No, that's ER. This was even older than that. This was like in the 80s. And the show ends with a shot of the hospital, and then it slowly zooms out, and the hospital is inside of a snow globe. And there's an autistic child staring at the snow globe. Yeah. And it's implied that the entire like 10 seasons that you watched were all just made up by this autistic kid looking at a snow globe. Is
it like sex and stuff too?
Yeah, like it's insanity.
Yeah, that's freaky. Yeah.
Then like one that's considered infamously the best was Bob Newhart had a show called The Bob Newhart Show. And then that got canceled, and he had a new show that was just called Newhart. And the final episode of Newhart was him waking up with his wife from the Bob Newhart Show and saying, I had the strangest dream that you were someone else. And it just like acknowledged that he basically just did the same show twice.
Yeah, nice. Julie didn't speak for that whole 10 minutes.
I didn't have anything to say.
Yeah, we got on a tangent about finales. But yeah, I mean, that 70s show, like I said, to me, it just represents this blanket. And this episode, like I said, I mean, unless you guys can think of something else, but I really do think that this is one of the most real breakups I've watched on a TV show.
I mean, it definitely felt real. I felt it in Donna's face when I don't have the dialogue in front of me, but she says something like, are you breaking up with me? Which is the most devastating question to ask when you're it's like, Eric, you're the one breaking up with me. Don't make me fucking say it, first of all. Yeah. But when she says it and he's like, well, are you taking back that promise? Come on. I mean, how can you like Eric Foreman in this? Yeah. But Donna's side, I was like, wow. And I love that she stuck to her guns and is like, okay, I mean, I don't feel this way. I'm not going to just say, okay, no, it's fine. Let's stay together. I mean, if you feel this way, but I thought that was great acting from her, and that cry after he says yes or whatever he says after she says, "Are you breaking up with me?" Her face is that's good stuff, and I felt that deep.
And
feel that
he has this line that like I get so angry every time he says it, but I know that I've felt that way, and then I feel like I'm just getting angry at myself. But it's when he asks her, like, do you see me in your future? And she's like, I don't know, sometimes. Like, there's never anybody else there, but sometimes I'm just alone. And she's like, I just want to, hope that we end up together. And he's like, well, the way that we end up together is that we say that we're together and then we stay together. And it's like, that is such a shitty thing to say, and it's such like an simplification of a situation that is like so much deeper. Relationships have so many layers. They're like onions.
Oh God.
There's so many things that you can't like put into a box, and like relationships are the hardest one because it's not just like, oh, I like this person likes me, so like clearly like there's so many other pieces to be played, and there's so many things to analyze. And as much as it sucks, like things like, who are your friends, and like, is this going to cause an issue, and like, do you like their family, does their family like you? Like, it's more than just the simple like, oh, we like each other, so clearly like this is what it needs to be. I kind of applaud this show for analyzing it from a much more real human perspective than, like I said, the easy way out of like, we were on a break, or like all of the other ways that you've seen a sitcom couple that's clearly supposed to be together and be together at the end have their breakup. It's so rarely such a human and real reason that people actually do end up breaking up.
That's true.
Relationships
That's really true.
are hard, baby.
They sure are.
Yeah, you're locked down though. You're all wifed up.
Yeah, you got that promise ring from Kenny.
You got that good promise ring.
Yeah.
Almost lost forever.
Oh my God.
Yeah, for the record, the best man dropped the rings while handing them off to Julie's husband at the ceremony. It was good times. And then the whole crowd cheered when everyone took out their cell phone lights to find it on the ground.
Like fucking real. I cannot wait to see the video of that. And then also when Kenny was blacked out drunk at 11:30 at night at a reception, his wedding ring flew off when he was dancing.
I forgot that we were all looking for the wedding ring at the ceremony. Whoa, I blocked that out somehow. I don't know how, because I was like, really looking. I wanted to be the one to find it for you.
Riley found it.
Dude, I blinked and it was 12:30 and I was like, what? Like it was the shortest wedding and it was a lot of hours, and I was like, no, this can't be over. I was fucked up.
That was unfucking real. When he came up to me and said he lost his wedding ring, I was like
Woo!
There was just pure sadness in his eyes.
Yeah, I was like, we need to find this so the night can move forward.
He thought I was like mad at him. I was like, no, I just think it's like the stupidest
Boys
thing.
aren't used to wearing rings.
No.
I'm not used to wearing rings. I might lose mine on my wedding night.
He kept saying it was too big, but Kenny has like really fat fingers. So I'm like, there's no way it was too big. He kept like I do it all the time. Like I don't wear rings usually. So I like, exactly. And when it flew off his finger, it was like up here. Like he literally probably like was like waving his hand and it just like flew off.
Kenny.
Anyways, well that wraps it up.
Yeah, that'll wrap it up. That was a good episode, Matt. You really had some good thoughts on that.
That was our most like intellectual episode.
Yeah, not from our side. No. Fully on Matt. And that I could have
Matt
paid
carried
money.
that entire episode.
True. And I feel bad that I'm biased against that 70s show because me and Matt pretty much have the same taste in stuff. But I'm not a sitcom girl. The boys of my other podcast are obsessed with How I Met Your Mother, and I'm watching from the beginning, and I'm like, this is good. Like I don't not like it, but there's so many amazing shows that I could be watching instead of a fucking sitcom with a laugh track. That's where I draw the line. I like The Office. I love Parks and Rec. I like Schitt's Creek. A fucking laugh track, man. Come on, son.
That's why if I was to like sit you down and be like, you're gonna watch a sitcom with me, like it wouldn't be that 70s show. It wouldn't be How I Met Your Mother. It would be Scrubs.
Scrubs have a laugh track?
No. Scrubs was like the first show I remember watching where I was like, oh wow, these are so much better without laugh tracks.
So much better.
And they were like but you would like Scrubs because beyond the like lack of a laugh track, the characters right out the gate, it's like a multi-layer show of like drama and comedy versus like, I feel like like that 70s show, this is the first episode that had like a bummer ending.
Yeah.
So it took 3 full seasons to get to like one moment of levity.
Yeah. I don't know. It was still good. I liked it. I like your takes on it the best. So that's good stuff.
I try.
Well, thank you, Matt. Thanks for coming on our little show, coming all this way to be on our show.
Yeah, it was a bit of a drive. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah, I want to pick an episode soon.
Okay.
Well, your 50th episode is coming up quickly.
So do I get to pick one?
Obviously, yeah.
Cool. 50 episodes for me? I act like I don't talk the entire time on every episode anyway. I'm like, I want to pick an episode so I get to talk the whole time. I fucking do that every single time.
I'm pretty sure your 50th episode would be like 63 or something like that, because it was only...
But it might be, are you saying 50th as a co-host or 50th as a on the show?
50th with you on a microphone.
Because I was on 3 before I was
That's what I mean.
a...
That's what I mean. I think there's only like 10 episodes that you're not somewhere on the episode.
Oh, I got to think about what I want to do. I'm such a narcissist. Okay, that was another episode of my favorite episode.
Tune in next week for another episode of my favorite episode.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
La 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 la.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah.
This has been My Favorite Episode Of. My Favorite Episode Of is produced by Matt Kelly as part of the Geekscape Network and hosted by Julie and Kathleen. Check out our show notes for all of our socials and email us at myfavoriteepisodepodcast@gmail.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to us on your favorite podcasting apps, and we'll be back next week with another episode of My Favorite Episode Of.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network. You're listening to the Geekscape Network.